Rather than becoming aggressive, angry, shouting at the monster, demon, or dragon you're dealing with, is you have to approach it with compassion. You have to see it for what it is. And what that does, it dissolves the boundaries between you and the monster. In fact, what will happen is you'll see that the monsters or the dragons that you're dealing with actually you recognize is actually part of you, as you said. So the person you need to become most compassionate to is yourself. I guarantee you, all of us at some level, when we use substances or when we're angry or we shout, are angry and shouting at ourselves. When we use substances, we have to numb ourselves to the pain we feel. We like self-flagellate, for the guilt we feel. And human beings, if we really had to introspect, there's lots of things we probably will feel guilty about. Okay? Something very interesting, I was watching a movie about the first African American baseball player. Okay? And the character that hires him is Harrison Ford. And he describes to the baseball player why he's hiring him. He was amazingly talented. Okay? And I think his name was Jackie Robinson. And Harrison Ford says something very interesting. He says when he was a young baseball player, there was another baseball player that was brilliant. However, because he was African American, they did not hire him at the time. Now, in many ways, he's making up for what he saw as a wrong. Most people around Harrison Ford didn't see it as a wrong. But if you and I introspect, there's lots of things, even years later, we'll recognize, geez, this was wrong. And how you have to deal with it, because generally what we do, when we see something that's wrong, human beings, we judge, we criticize, and we destroy. We fight it, we get angry, and if you don't believe me, just go onto Twitter and just check the comments on something that's very controversial. Just tune into your radio station when they have a talk show and see how people get angry. Just watch the news and see how you get angry, right? As we do sometimes when we watch something that's against us. And you and I, when we criticize or judge, the monsters come out, the dragons come out, the demons come out. Now to watch yourself, you inevitably go into a space where you will judge and criticize yourself and you feel you need to act in the same way. What you need to do is become compassionate, kind, caring, and loving to yourself. And who about yourself? You have to be kind, compassionate, and caring and loving. Remember that 3-year-old kid? Some of us can remember, or 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds, when you were that 3-year-old, 4 or 5-year-old kid and you got messed up. By the way, interesting, when you were a child, 3 to 4, 5 years old, when someone did something nasty towards you, do you generally the first time around react with anger, shaking your heads? Yeah. You're probably more likely to have felt shame and embarrassment and humiliation. And confusion, absolutely. Because you don't know, you're learning the way of how the world operates. That they will shame you, humiliate you, and embarrass you. And you're confused because what do you do? And if it happens once, twice, 3, 4 times, you learn that you have to protect yourself. And how do you protect yourself? You may show anger. You may show resentment. You will even show definitely aggression. Okay? And what happens is you are wiring your brain and firing your brain, literally firing like the dragon, to be prepared for any negative impact on you, for any danger that might come your way. Why? Because you don't want to be going back to that space of embarrassment, humiliation, and shame. It left you, why we don't like it? It left us too vulnerable. And over the years, as much as you react with anger, aggression, you still feel that vulnerability. You still feel that element of shame. And you might even feel that fear because it takes you back to being that 3, 4, 5-year-old. And we hate that. Because that was when you were most innocent. And that's where you didn't actually mean any harm. Kids don't mean wrong. But you learn quickly, wait a minute, this is seen as wrong and how dare you say I'm wrong. And you got to protect yourself. But what you're doing is you're nurturing that dragon and demon within you. And all these years later, that anger and hurt and suffering which you have wired over the last 10, 20, 30 years is so strong. The wall you built around your monster is so strong. To kind of approach it with compassion, kindness and love is challenging, because you have to make yourself vulnerable again. And you don't want to do it because you fear facing up to that shame and embarrassment, because someone comes from the right or the left and you couldn't see it coming and they literally or figuratively punch you on the head. It takes you back to being 3, 4, 5 years old again. You need to show compassion, love, kindness to yourself. And you can say it in words. In fact, there's this technique called a Ho'oponopono technique. It's been made famous by Dr. Hu Lin. He gives 4 statements. I love you. I thank you. I forgive you. I'm sorry. I'll repeat them. I love you. I thank you. I forgive you. I'm sorry. And what you can do is add your statements to it. If you feel I'm generally not cared for, add it. I care for you. Or I'm grateful for you. I show gratitude towards you. I respect you. I'm kind to you. And you have to address those demons, those dragons, those monsters. And what then happens is you then start viewing life differently. Because by viewing yourself differently, you view life differently. By viewing life differently, you view yourself differently. And what happens then, you'll find yourself generally, and this is beautiful to see someone making that transition, is you then don't judge and criticize life. You view life with compassion and kindness. It comes from a place of authenticity. It comes from a deeper space. And then using substances to cope with the pain, there is less pain because you're seeing things more compassionately. So even if, for example, you see something that you politically don't agree with, something you violently have an opposite view on, if you can view it compassionately, kindly, and endeavor to understand where the other person's coming from, it changes how you see the situation and it changes you. And then you are far more gentle with yourself, far more kinder with yourself, and you allow your energy state to go into a far more beautiful space. So rather than being aggressive, resentful, isolation, you are more connected because you connect with people. You communicate at a compassionate, kind level. Aggression becomes a way of separating you from others. But if you, one might say, compassionate, it connects you with others. It brings you closer together. Simple things you can start off with practically is like even asking someone, how are you doing? And not like how we do it, how are you doing, or how's it, as we may say in South Africa. It's really connecting and wanting to know how the other person feels. And that way, by lifting them, you lift yourself. There's a beautiful saying, in the joy of others lies your own. In the happiness of others lies your own. In the love of others lies your own. Now that we've taken away all the other substances and vices that have kept us all numbed, you're going to see this uprising of pain. But how do you deal with pain is with compassion, kindness, love towards yourself and others. And that way you change yourself and you change the world you live in.